Greetings, everyone. My name is Danielle, and welcome to Makeup Geek 1021. Now, Jean Grey, as you know, she is my number one favorite Marvel superhero, and she is considered to be one of the greatest superheroes ever created. And I think that is very much so true. But today we will be actually steering away from her regular Earth 616 counterpart that is from mainstream Marvel, and we will be examining some alternate versions of her in the form of a top 10 style video. So let's get into my list of the top 10 alternate versions of Jean Grey. Number 10. Age of Apocalypse. In the Age of Apocalypse reality created by Professor Xavier's son, David Haller, Jean is shown to be a student of Magneto and is shown to actually not be involved with Cyclops romantically, because keep in mind, Cyclops, he was adopted by Mr. Sinister in Age of Apocalypse, and this led into Jean falling for Wolverine, who is one of Magneto's students going by the name of Weapon X. And she is eventually kidnapped by Mr. Sinister, who combined her DNA with Cyclops's to create the perfect mutant X-Man. It's actually revealed she was the one to stop a nuclear attack from the Human High Council, and she was actually resurrected by Mr. Sinister, and she displayed early signs of her Phoenix Force powers. Number 9, Days of Future Past. In the alternate timeline, Days of Future Past, Jean was actually shown to never commit suicide at the hands of the Shi'ar Empire, and her and Scott actually got married, and together they had a daughter named Rachel Summers. Unfortunately, in this reality, though, Jean is actually killed by Mastermind, and it's conflicted whether or not she was actually replaced by the essence of the Phoenix Force, because her daughter Rachel has access to the Phoenix Force just like her mother. Number 8, X-Men the Animated Series. Let's get into some representation of the 1992 X-Men Animated Series on this list. The X-Men Animated Series made the mistake during season 1 of the show by not using Jean Grey nearly enough. Like, that show, they didn't use Beast or Jean nearly enough in season 1, but by season 2, all of this changed when Professor X was taken completely out of the equation, when he was put into Savage Land with Magneto, and this allowed Jean to step up into a more, motherly leadership role that she's supposed to have in the comics, and the cartoon actually did the Phoenix Saga pretty close to perfect, and Jean was allowed to develop and come into her own, much like how Chris Claremont allowed her to come into her own when he took over the comics. Number 7 will have to be X-Men Evolution. X-Men Evolution was the cartoon that, reimagined the X-Men as high school teenagers to allow them to resonate more with young kids. And Jean, she's actually shown to be going through a coming-of-age type story and learning what it means to become a young woman. She's going through a love triangle with Scott Summers and her boyfriend Duncan Matthews, whom everybody hates. We all hate Duncan Matthews. If you watched X-Men Evolution, you hate him too. And this also leads into her powers growing out of control, and she has this mother-daughter type of relationship with Storm, and she has this relationship with Wolverine where he acts as almost like an uncle for her and Scott rather than lusting after her like he does in the comics. Because if you really think about it, Wolverine lusting after a 16-year-old girl, that would be so inappropriate. But if the show had lasted one more season, they totally would have been able to do the Phoenix Saga. I want Marvel to bring X-Men Evolution back. I would love to see them bring the show back. So now we'll go into number 6, and number 6 is Earth 1015. Okay, so this is not a universe taking place in a comic book, but rather it's an X-Men comic rewrite fanfiction series written by Marvel Master 616. This fanfiction author, he truly reimagined the X-Men universe and made it his own by borrowing from Ultimate Ultimate Marvel as well as the mainstream comics. And in this universe, Jean Grey comes from a family of con artists and drunks. Like, she comes from some pretty crappy circumstances. And Madeline Pryor, who is typically her Janae clone in the comics, is actually her cousin in this universe. And it makes so much more sense than Madeline being like a Janae clone, thank God. She additionally spent some time in a mental hospital after a severe car accident that actually caused her powers to manifest. And in that car accident, her older sister Sarah was killed, and that just led to everything going downhill from there for Jean. But ultimately, I just feel that this fanfiction writer in particular should write for Marvel Comics, and that is why his universe is credited in my list for the top 10 alternate versions of Jean Grey, because he truly, like, really put the spotlight on her in a way that was so, like, empowering. Like, I just absolutely love the way that he writes for her. Number 5 is Marvel Zombies 2. In this sequel to Marvel Zombies, Jean is actually shown to be Dark Phoenix and is a member of the Zombie Galactus. However, her appearance in this is pretty short because the Hulk punches her through the head and he kills her. So, yeah, that's a thing. Number 4, Red Queen. This version is a counterpart of Jean from Earth 9575, who is mostly depowered due to crimes that she committed that are completely unknown, and she's banished from her own universe, and Jean is sent to Earth 998, where she pretends to be that Earth's Madeline Pryor, who is recently deceased, where she sets out to become Queen of Britain and the entire world. That's actually a pretty cool idea to me. Number 3 is the Yost universe. The Yost universe is the cartoon Wolverine and the X-Men, where Jean is shown to be the one responsible for an explosion at the Xavier Institute, which knocks Xavier into a coma. However, it's later learned that the mental blocks on Jean's mind blocking out her Phoenix powers were broken by Emma Frost, who acts as her replacement on the team. This is the show that probably used Jean the least, out of like all cartoons, but she is still shown having like a huge impact on the story, and she's still a core element, something as a fan that I can genuinely appreciate and respect. Number 2, Ultimate Marvel. In Ultimate Marvel, Jean is shown to be different, way different than her sweet and demure 616 counterpart, and is something a little more fun and edgy than she typically would be. She's actually shown to be a bit of a tease who gets a joy out of reading the minds of her teammates and has a very sarcastic sense of humor and personality, and it's established that she's like 19 years old. Additionally, Jean's Phoenix powers are shown to be much more grounded, and they tend to reveal themselves when Jean gets angry. This is probably one of my favorite versions of Jean, and is probably the more badass version of her. If you do not like her Earth 616 counterpart, I think that you would fall in love with the Ultimate Marvel Universe version of Jean. And lastly, at number 1, we've got the film universe. The Fox X-Men films are probably some of my favorites, particularly X-Men 2, because X-Men 3 sucked, and the first X-Men film is pretty damn overrated. But I feel that both Famke Janssen and Sophie Turner played Jean in a way that felt very new and fresh in their own right. In the original trilogy, Jean's Phoenix powers are shown to have always been part of her. In X-Men Dark Phoenix, it's actually established that Jean's access to the Phoenix Force is not only inherently just a part of her, but there's a second half of the cosmic entity that actually comes from space. While some of the X-Men films may have disappointed us, namely X-Men Origins Wolverine and X-Men The Last Stand, for me, both Sophie and Famke did an amazing job with the character and truly did the character justice, and I just cannot wait to see what the MCU plans to do with her. Alright guys, now that's my list of the top 10 alternate versions of Jean Grey. Let me know down below in the comments what your favorite version of Jean Grey is, and if you're new, subscribe to the channel for more videos to come.